Hey guys, it's Greaseball, and today I'm going to go over the Jetstorm conclusions and like kind of like thoughts after actually getting to play with Jetstorm and Priest these past couple of weeks, and kind of give some tips and pointers going into the metagame challenge. So first, I'm going to cover the update on counting your mana with Priest. Um, then I'm going to go through the new Jetstorm heuristic that I believe is like the key thing to know when piloting this deck with Priest now. And then I will go into the new sideboard plans on the existing matchups with Priest and Jetstorm, and it's going to cover your big four, right? So Energy, Black White Belcher, Show and Tell, and Blue Black Tempo. And then I'm going to go into just like general conclusions after laddering with Priest on Arena with and how it feels in Jetstorm and like kind of how your matchups have like changed, and like kind of and it's how the general gameplay of Jetstorm has changed as a result of Priest being added to the format. All right, first off, so I initially said that Priest was +1 whenever you had access to it. That is not the case. There's just not anything comparable to Priest of Gix in the deck at all. If you have access to your Priest, if you have access to Priest and Nightmare, you're just like very close to an infinite, is usually what the case is. And so with that in mind, you kind of just like are registering, okay, do I have this infinite or not with Priest? And that's all you're really calculating. You're no longer like having to worry about like mana and stuff like that as nearly as much, because with Priest, you're just gonna have a lot of trivial infinites. So that's really good. So I don't even count Priest as a number anymore. I just go, look, I have access to a Priest. If I hit another one, it's just like I get an infinite that way. Like I'm gonna have access to an infinite probably. So I just look at it as you have a Priest. I wouldn't go anything past that anymore. I wouldn't count it as +1 or anything. I think that was a very underestimated. After playing more with it, Priest is its own thing. Now, this is the most important thing in the video, in my opinion. So this, I think, is the most important low resource combo that you have access in the deck. Stitchers is 1 mana less than Apprentice, which is a very big deal. And with this 4-card combo of Priest, Nightmare, Freebooter, and Stitchers, you can actually turn 2 with it, with a Phyrexian Tower. And you don't need access to a Medallion, and you don't need access to a Ritual, which is like really insane, right? Because like those are 2 very powerful cards that it's like really nice to have access to. But like if you can go off on turn 2 without them, I think that says a lot about the strength of the combo. And it just gives you like a lot even more redundancy because you're no longer needing these like ace cards like a Ritual to get a turn 2. And so basically, if you have an infinite scry with Freebooter and Priest of Gix, you can just infinitely scry until you get another Priest on top, and then you can play Stitchers. And that'll put the other Priest into your bin, and you'll basically you'll have double Priests in, and you'll be able to infinitely loop them for infinite mana, and then you loop with Stitchers, and then you get your Apprentice and do whatever you want. You have an infinite mana at that point and infinite loops, right? And so the heuristic that I've been using for this this loop is if you have a Priest in play and you have 4 mana up and a Freebooter in the bin, you have a deterministic win. So if you can never get to that point, it doesn't matter whether the Stitchers is in your hand or the bin. It only matters that you have the Freebooter target there, and it just so if you can get to this point, Priest with 4 mana in play, you have access to all these cards. You have a deterministic win because you can infinitely scry and then Stitchers to mill the second Priest. So I would go over this and review it and kind of understand it. If you intend to play Priest if you intend to play Jet this weekend, it's a very, very important combo. And just know the heuristic Priest with 4 mana floating, you have the win here. Okay, now the updated list, right? Stitchers is really, really good game 1. And so you're just gonna want 4 of them in the main. That's just it's way too good to not play. Particularly because of that heuristic we just went through. We want 4 in the main. Another thing is with how fast Jet has become, Bowmasters, the interaction from Bowmasters like feels a bit slower. So Bowmasters is also too slow to go fully infinite on Arena. And so you can no longer deterministically like combo with it. Like we were considering in the discussion in my previous video. So because we know that it's no longer a deterministic combo piece because of the arena timer, it's dropped in value a bit. And it's really only actively good versus like the blue decks that play like Mana Drain Brainstorm. And so because of this, we're just going to go ahead and go down to 2 copies. If these Mana Drain decks and like or like tempo like goes up quite a bit, we can consider putting more copies of Bowmasters in the main. But I don't think Bowmasters does enough, and like we really need to be careful with our pieces at this point. And so I've gone down to 2 Bowmasters in the main. And now another thing is just like in the general like how the sideboard is built now is we end up having a lot of cards post board to bring in versus Mardu, and we have a really like good game 1, I think. So I ended up bringing back, and so like it basically means like we can cut some equity game 1 and like kind of have a better like matchup against combo by bringing a grief back into the main. And we can go up more griefs if combo meta share increases always. But yeah, I think we have a lot of cards for Mardu, like specific cards that are like good and we really want versus Mardu. So I'm gonna actually cut down the Bowmasters, which was kind of one of our more flexible good cards against Mardu, in order to really focus and like increase equity in the combo matchup. Also, the thing is like Bowmasters now, because we're so fast, the interaction from Bowmasters ends up mattering less. And so we're actually just like less interested in playing Bowmasters against these like fair decks. Anyways, it's more really only used against like Mana Drain Brainstorm stuff. So I'm just kind of down on Bowmasters a bit lately is where I'm at. Now going into like the updated sideboard plans. So since the previous metagame challenge, I think show and tell control has gotten a lot more popular. And in general, all the show and tell builds are running a lot more redundancy and Born effects with waterlog teachings. I think it was before that, they were citing out Borns and they weren't playing like, some of these lists weren't playing any waterlog teachings. That is no longer the case. I think they're pretty much all on multiple copies of waterlog teachings, like going from anywhere from 2 to 4. And so because of this, it means they're going to be able to hit, they only have to run 1 Born effect in the main. And so they're only really going to ever have to like, they basically just have so much redundancy that the effect of like Reclamation Sage gets a lot worse, because also they only have to keep 1 Born in to get all their redundancy from their teachings. And so before like so we're just you get a lot less equity off of Reclamation Sage in these matchups now. And so because of that, we're just taking it out of the board completely. And with this in mind, there are also a lot more decks playing like Mana Drain, and like some are even running Commandeer, which is a little heinous, but fair enough. And so we're kind of still sticking to like more of a discard plan with bringing in our Duresses and our Surgicals and our Griefs. And we're just kind of more focusing on that. It's possible you might want to go up to 2 Bauble if you're running into a lot of show and tell, and cut out something else in the sideboard, like maybe a Grief or something. A Grief would probably be my cut if you wanted to add in a second Bauble. But yeah, so this is the court board for S&T. Now for the energy variance in that matchup, because we're about like a turn faster and we need less resources to go off, we can actually, instead of playing like this more like fair like interactive game plan that we kind of played post board previously, which wasn't that good, we can kind of just play more. We can go all in more on an anti-hate game plan, because we're faster. They're really kind of forced to interact with us, and the onus is a lot more on them. And so I'm actually happy to go up to 3 mites, because it means that you don't have to tutor for them as often, which is like really nice. And then you also just have like a lot of these randomly infinite loops with priest and might anyways. And so you're actually like pretty happy to play 3 mites in this more like interactive like post board game, where they have to almost keep like some of these prisony draws that like don't even do anything. I've had a lot of them keep like 1-landers or 2-landers that don't really do anything besides play a bunch of hate pieces out. And so because of this, we're really happy with 3 mites. And for a while I was taking out medallions, but I actually really like them because it really helps our linear. And we're actually really good at protecting our medallions and trading for them with Haywire Might if we don't have any other good targets for Haywire Might to hit besides Static Prison with the medallion underneath. Now for the blue-black X Tempo matchup. With Black-White Belcher, like being more popularized in this meta, and just, you know, the play rate of like Dark Ritual going up a little bit, and like just in general, like more unfair things happening in the format. They've increased their Spell Pierce and Spell Snare counts a ton. And so the effect that this has is hands that rely on like Diabolic Intent, like, you know, your turn 2 Diabolic Intent combos for Necro, they end up feeling much worse because you just get like blown out. You know, you 2-for-1 yourself, and then they're just like countering it for 1 mana or 2 mana and getting, you know, mana drain mana back off of it. And so they end up feeling a lot worse post board against blue black. And so versus blue black, I'm pivoting kind of more to a strategy of you're still bringing in your grids and your mites, and you are bringing in your 1 march, but you're basically taking off things that can like get countered or like aren't threats on their own, which are your Diabolic Intents and 2 of your medallions. If you wanted to help this matchup, you could probably play like a second march and you know, like go down like another medallion. But I think for a while Diabolic Intents were like very untouchable, but after more and more play with it, I just like there's just so many opening lines that get blown out by like Spell Pierce and Spell Snare, and so like we just can't really I don't think it's worth running Diabolic Intent against Tempo specifically, which is like a very like brash or like just a very like big change, but I think it's correct for now. Black-White Belcher has emerged as a deck. They are a bit faster than us. Notably, Spy has been very, very good in this matchup. They can, and so also you'll notice what their plan is. We are taking out all our Bowmasters, which means on paper they can technically leave in Necro Dominance against this board plan and like still get to play it. But it's like it's not. Their linears are much worse with Necro Dominance, and it's like worse than Necropotence. And so like if they're leaving in Necro Dominance, it means they don't really have any room to make cuts to bring in their Ley Lines of Sanctity, which means their Spy is always going to be on. So I think it's fine to cut Bowmasters against a Necro Dominance deck in this specific case, because I feel like they're very obligated to bring in Ley Line of Sanctity with our board plan. Notably, I'm bringing in it like 1 might as like a bailout in case they land their 1 Rest in Peace, or like they bring in like a Ley Line of Sanctity or something, and we just want to hit it. You could argue for I don't know if this is correct or not necessarily. I like having access to 1 because we were keeping in all our tutors. If you really wanted to, and you like think it's like, oh, you shouldn't even play around their 1 hate, it's like weak, you could just play a might over or you could play a medallion over the might. Notably, the medallions are coming out because they died of the Elenda ETB, and it's just kind of a big blowout if it happens. This may or may not also be correct. I'm not 100% sure. I just know that like it has felt really, really bad if the medallion gets blown up by Elenda, but you know, we'll see. But in general, this matchup has like felt pretty solid, but I also haven't played like a lot of the like more like a lot of the stronger Black-White Belcher pilots on ladder as much. So it's possible that this matchup is still like pretty even, I think. But yeah. Now general like conclusions with the ladder are Stitchers with Priest and Freebooter is like clearly the best linear combo in your deck. It's like not close. It's like your only way to like turn 2 without a medallion or like a ritual. Notably, like Apprentice is a bit slower than Stitchers, but it's really shines and is at its best in best of 3 when it allows you to fight better with your graveyard cutoff, because you're just like still getting all these pings and you're just getting all this random reach and stuff and really like exerting pressure on the opponent. If you were gonna play like a best of 1 list with Jed, you could go down to like 2 copies of Apprentice and still be fine. It's just not as good game 1 as Stitchers is, but it's really good games 2 and 3. So we're gonna be playing 4, and we're not bringing them out like pretty much ever. Notably, the list has now gotten a bit too fast for Bowmasters like interaction to be as impactful, so we're not playing as many copies of Bowmasters. Sorry, I doubled that. And then now Jet with Priest does feel like more frail, but like the trade-off is definitely worth it, right? You're like a turn faster. But as a result of that, the opposing players are now bringing in more hate post-board, which means our post-board plan has shifted more, instead of like interaction based like post-board and just kind of like, really just trying to get a necro down or something, like we have a lot more of like an anti-hate game plan, which is like I think favors us a bit more. And I like is just something to note. Now, lastly, I think Surgical has not been seen as much as like I thought it would. Like I thought I was like playing Stitchers and like, every couple of sideboard games, every couple of post-board games, my nightmare was just going to get Surgical and I was going to feel bad. That has not happened a lot. I think people are just not running that much like Surgical in general. Like I know Esper Tempo is not really running it. I don't think like show and tell variants have not been running it really that much. It's really just Mardu that's on like surgical. So I have not been as afraid of surgical, and I've been like a lot greedier with my Stitchers like post board as a result of this. I think that's everything. Yeah, that's everything. All right, well, thank you everyone, and yeah, have a good one.